There was a woman who kept a well in the center of her village. She gave to everyone who asked, giving until there was nothing left. It was an old well, deep and cool, and she had tended it since she was young. Every morning, before dawn, she drew water for her household, for cooking, for washing, for the day's needs. Then she drew for everyone else. She never said no. The well was hers to tend, and tending meant giving. What she did not know was that the well needed time between drawings. The underground spring that fed it was slow and steady, but it could not keep pace with constant demand. With each drawing, the water sank lower. If she waited, it would rise again. But there was always someone thirsty, and their thirst was now, and so she drew again. She did not realize how closely her children were watching. As time passed, the woman's collarbones began to show. Her wedding ring slipped and turned on her finger. She still showed up. She still drew water. But she drank last, ate the smallest portion, slept after everyone else, and woke before. Her hands moved through tasks without pause, reaching, lifting, pouring, each motion flowing into the next, because stopping meant falling behind. Sometimes in the afternoon, when the sun was high and the stone around the well burned hot, she would lower the bucket and then stand there, rope in hand, staring at nothing. Her arms hung loose, her breath came shallow. But before she could name what was missing, someone would appear with their bucket, and her hands would begin to move again. Her children grew. They learned to draw water too. And what they did made her throat tighten. They gave their water away as she did, until their own mouths were dry. She watched her daughter hand over her last cup to a neighbor and wipe her cracked lips with the back of her hand. Her daughter, now nearly grown, stood at the well one evening after everyone had been served. Her shoulders curved forward, her head bowed. "Mama," she said, "I'm so tired." The woman heard herself say automatically, "Rest when the work is done." When is it done? The question hung between them. The woman opened her mouth and found no answer. She had never asked it herself. The work was never done. The well never refused anyone. That night, she could not sleep. She sat at the edge of the well in the early morning before anyone awoke. The well was nearly dry. At the bottom, there was mud. She thought of her children, her daughter's curved shoulders, her son's downcast eyes when he sat down to eat, the way they both said, "I'm sorry," when they yawned. She had not shielded them. She had taught them to empty themselves. The bucket hit stone. She went inside and found a board, a piece of charcoal. And then the fear arrived. If she closed the well, people would go thirsty. If she let it refill while they waited with empty buckets, what kind of keeper was she? A well existed to give. That was its purpose. To close it while people needed water was to fail at the one thing that mattered. Her hands shook as she picked up the board. Her breath came short and shallow. She made herself walk to the well anyway. She hung the sign. The well is refilling. Come back tomorrow afternoon. The first person who saw it was angry. The second was confused. Both walked away. Her stomach churned. Her hands still trembled. But the sign stayed. At noon, she heard the small sound of water beginning to seep through stone. By evening, there was an inch at the bottom. The next day, 6 inches. The day after, a foot. The spring had never stopped. It had only needed time to do what springs do. When she reopened the well, it was half full. Not brimming, but enough. Enough to give and enough to refill. A sustainable rhythm instead of endless emptying. Her children watched this too. Some mornings, they saw her draw water for herself first. They saw her rest before collapse. They saw her say no when the well was low. Her daughter's shoulders lifted. Her son laughed at dinner. The children grew up and dug their own wells, and they learned to let them refill. The well in the center of the village still gives water, but now it gives from fullness, not from mud and stone. Here's the thing. We spend so much time learning to give that we never learn it's okay to refill. So what's one thing you feel guilty saying no to, even when you're exhausted? Leave a comment below.